Kazuya Mishima wins.
Three, two, one, go! Three, two, one, go!
chance to grow.
Three, two, one, go!
Fail not!
Each battle a chance to grow.
Choose your fighter. one,